online making a presentation, if you ask any questions, please address them to the chair and not directly at the person being asked. The first order of business will be to ask any committee members if they have any conflicts of interest with the applications that are on the agenda this evening. Following that, a request will be made for any deferrals or withdrawals of applications that are on the agenda. I believe we have at least one application that will be coming in online. When we bring them into the meeting, I will ask them first off to confirm that they wish to proceed. Following that, our acting Secretary Treasurer this evening will read out each application noted on the agenda with a brief description, staff recommendation. The applicant or the agent of the applicant will be asked to come forward if they are here to the podium on my right, on your left if you're sitting in the crowd, or we'll bring them in online. We'll be allowed a short overview to explain any further details they wish to add at that time. Members of the committee will then have an opportunity to ask the applicants any questions that they have, followed by members of the public that wish to speak to the application. Any members of the public wishing to speak to an application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address, try to limit their comments to 10 minutes, and must present all questions or comments that are pertinent to the application in that time frame. Persons making the presentation will not necessarily be allowed to return again to speak to the same application. Following all public comments, the applicant will be afforded some closing comments if desired. The committee members will then present a decision in the form of a motion. Motion will be discussed and voted upon. If a vote is tied, the motion will be defeated, and new motions will be made until a decision has been reached by the majority. Notices of decision will only be provided to those persons who leave their name and address in writing with the Secretary Treasurer. For those in attendance, there is a sign-in sheet at the back of the room for that purpose, or for persons viewing online, you can email our Secretary Treasurer at Tayaba, T-A-Y-A, at portcolborne.ca, or you can call 905-228-8124 immediately following the hearing and leave a message requesting the notice. So that is the protocols for this evening. I will ask if there's any conflicts with any of the applications this evening. Any of the members? Not seeing any. So with that, ones that are in attendance, any requests for deferrals or withdrawals of applications? Not seeing any. So with that, Acting Secretary, the first application, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On tonight's agenda, we have 2 minor variance applications and 1 consent application. Notice of the applications were circulated to the public on May 23rd. The required agencies received notice of the applications on May 16th. A recommendation report for these applications was prepared by planning staff and made publicly available on June 6th. All correspondence received by June 6th was addressed in the recommendation report. Those interested can view the recommendation reports online on the city's website or in person at City Hall. Those interested may also contact planning staff in person, by email, or over the phone to obtain a copy of the reports. Accommodations for alternative methods of viewing or obtaining the recommendation reports are available upon request. Please note, the zoning bylaw currently in effect is in the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, which will henceforth be referred to as the zoning bylaw. Our first application tonight is a consent application B06-25-PC for the lands known municipally as 228 Knoll Street. The owner, Dana Stanley, is requesting consent to sever for the purpose of creating a new semi-detached dwelling and to facilitate ownership of the individual units. The subject parcels are shown as Part 1 and 2 on the proposed sketch. Given the recommendation report, planning staff recommend that the respective consent application be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated June 6, 2025.
Thank you. And I believe the applicant is online. The agent for the applicant.
I am looking online. I'm going to ask either of the participants online if they wish to speak to this application, but the name that is on this application and the agent is not one that I'm seeing here right now. So do either of the speakers online, I'm looking at seeing Alex and Gloria, are either of you wishing to speak to this application at 228 Knoll Street?
Sorry, are you speaking to the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, I have nothing to add to my application at this time, no.
Okay, so just, if I might, just for the record, who's on the line, and if I can get your name and address, please.
Yeah, Dana Stanley.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm just noticing now that my name comes up as Alex K. So I'm not sure how that happened. I think my son-in-law had borrowed my computer.
No worries.
It's Dana Stanley speaking. Sorry about that.
Very good. So just before we go, I'm guessing you don't want to withdraw or defer your application this evening?
Correct. I do not. Yep.
All right, very good. And I believe you said you had nothing further to add at this time?
Correct.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions of the applicant? Is there any members of the public that wish to speak to this application? Not seeing any. And I don't believe the other person that's online is that.
Through the chair, that person did not indicate an interest in speaking to this application.
All right, very good. So with that, does anyone have a recommendation? Eric.
In application B06-25-PC, Plan 792, Part Borden Avenue, East Knoll Street, reference Plan 59 R17542, Part 1 in the city of Port Colborne. B06-25-PC be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated June 6, 2025.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Dave? Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? I see Gary's hands waving. I was just waiting for Gary to wave his hand there. That'll be carried. Thank you. There is a 20-day waiting period, but other than that, you should be good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next application at your leisure.
Okay, our next application is a minor variance application A11-25-PC for the lands municipally known as 2125 Ramey Road, located in the agricultural zone, as established in zoning bylaw. The owners, Dale and Kylie Thompson, are requesting relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw to permit the construction of a new accessory building, notwithstanding the following: that an accessory building height of 11 meters be permitted, whereas a maximum of 6 meters is permitted, and that a lot coverage of 4% for an accessory building be permitted, where a maximum of 1% is permitted. Given the information in the recommendation report, planning staff recommend application A11-25-PC be granted as the application is minor in nature. It is appropriate for the development of the site. It is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. It is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and the purpose of the official plan.
Thank you. Is the applicant here for this one? If you would, you can come up to the podium to the right here. There you go. Is there anything you'd like to add to the application?
Nothing I need to add to the application.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Dave?
Thanks. I'm assuming that the siting of the building is going to be where those 4 pylons are?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I got
That's what the 4 pylons are for. Yeah.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
It helped me lots. Okay. That was all I had.
Thank you. Any other questions? There's no one else here in the gallery, so do we know if that person's online waiting to?
Let's ask Chair. Would Gloria online be interested in speaking to this application? That's 2125 Ramey Road.
Guess not. Okay. So with that, the only question I have is in looking at the sketch that was provided and looking online on Niagara Navigator, it looks like the property to the east, there's a house that's up on the hill that you can barely see from the road. Does that actually encroach on your property?
Yes, it does.
So the house literally encroaches on your property?
There's a existing barn there that there is like an encroachment issue with the property line, yeah.
Ah, okay. I did see that, and although it really doesn't have any impact on the variance, I did ask it. It looked like online it was maybe equivalent to, what did I say, 13 square meters or something. Really insignificant based on the size of the property. The only other question I have, I know in your application you had mentioned that the accessory dwelling that you're planning to build is more for storage and vehicles as opposed to like a farming use or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yes and no. Yes, it's for personal storage, but there will be some agricultural purposes for it as well.
Okay. The reason I asked the question, and I had emailed staff earlier, there is an MDS calculation that could come into play if it's considered agricultural use, i.e. a barn, coop, whatever. And because of the original, I guess, assumption of what it was going to be used for, it wouldn't have come into play. I don't know if that changes anything in this particular case.
Through the chair, and maybe I would just ask the applicant to clarify, does agricultural use mean livestock or equipment storage?
More equipment storage, yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to have cattle in there?
No.
Okay.
Or horses, or...
I'd feel bad for the livestock, yes.
Okay. And that's really the reason I asked, because if the use changes, that changes things with respect to the things we need to consider in the MDS formula, because it is a fairly substantial size dwelling. And I know I had asked this question, and I'm going to defer to Eric here a little bit. I'm pretty sure a couple weeks ago, after coming back from your training, there was some comment that you made about MDS calculations and whether a barn or building is actually used or not used for livestock, whether it's considered in an MDS calculation, being that this property is zoned agricultural. At this, I believe at that portion would be agricultural, is that correct?
Through the chair, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is in the agricultural use. So I'm not sure what your learnings were from that conference or not with regards to that. I thought you'd mentioned something about that.
Through you to you. Essentially, that was, yeah, if it's a livestock or was previously used as livestock and could be used for livestock, then in that case, it could be determined to be, MDS could apply. So I don't think this application, I don't know, I would defer to Eric, who has much more experience in this field, but I don't think this would apply in this application.
Okay, it was that conversation that you had brought it up that kind of triggered me to ask the question, but since this is a new use and it's never been used for a barn, we'll go with your previous explanation to me, which is fine. So with that, if no one else has got any questions, Gary, you don't have any questions? Nope. All right. And there's no one else in the public. Anyone got a recommendation for this one? Dave?
Get on the thing. Move application A11-25-PC, concession 3, part of Lot 24 in the city of Port Colborne. Application A11-25-PC be granted. For the following reasons, the applications are minor in nature. They are appropriate for the development of the site. They are desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. They are desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan.
Thank you. Seconder to that? Eric? Questions or comments? All those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you. There's a 20-day waiting period, just like the previous one. Following, I guess, today, so yeah, it's only a variance, 20-day waiting.
Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And acting secretary, the last application, please.
Is minor variance application A09-25-PC for the land municipally known as 80 Nickel Street, located in the 4th density residential zone as established in the zoning bylaw. The agent, Aaron Butler, on behalf of the owners, Virgil Group Development, Inc. are requesting relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw to permit the development of a new apartment building, notwithstanding the following. So the main building needs a minimum front yard setback of 0.3 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 9 meters is required. A minimum interior side yard of 2.4 meters be permitted, where a minimum interior side yard of 3 meters is required. For balconies and barrier walls, that the attached barrier wall projecting east-west of the building's proposed front facade be allowed to encroach into the perimeter of the lots. That the minimum front lot line setback of 0.3 meters be permitted where a minimum front lot line setback of 7.5 meters is required. And that a minimum interior side lot line setback of 0.8 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum interior side lot line setback of 3 meters is required. For the general lot, the minimum landscaped area of 21% be permitted, where a minimum landscaped area of 25% is required. That a minimum lot area per unit of 61 meters squared be permitted, where the minimum lot area unit of 125 meters squared is required. That a maximum lot coverage of 52% be permitted, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 40% is permitted. That the minimum number of parking spaces required for an apartment building is reduced from 1.25 spaces to 1.05 spaces per unit. And that the minimum landscape area buffer provided between the edge of any parking area and the abutting lot line be reduced from 3 meters to 1.1 meters on the western lot line, from 3 meters to 2.3 meters on the north lot line, and from 3 meters to 0.95 meters on the south lot line. And that the location of the required bicycle parking be changed from the principal entrance of the building to the rear access of the building. Given the information in the recommendation report, planning staff recommend that minor variance application A09-25-PC be granted, as the applications are minor in nature, they are appropriate for the development of the site, they are desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and they are desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan.
Thank you. And the applicants here this evening. And I believe you have a little bit of a presentation for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do. I'll go over a few things if it's okay with the committee. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm Aaron Butler with NPG Planning Solutions out of Niagara Falls. And hello to committee members in the room and online, and if there's any members of the public. Just while Eric is pulling up the presentation here, I'll just note that we're here for the minor variance at 80 Nickel Street, and I'm presenting on behalf of our client, Virgil Group. Is that all set? Okay, great. And can I control the slides, or want me to just mention to you?
If not, I'll answer.
There we go. So the lands, as you all know, are on the north side of Nickel Street. They're between Mitchell and Davis Streets. To the east is commercial uses. To the west are vacant lands, and to the north are residential lands. To the south are some vacant lands and residential as well. There's institutional in the area, and there's also industrial down the street. The area is part of the East Waterfront Secondary Plan, and the lands are designated mixed use in that secondary plan, which support residential uses. They do support standalone residential uses, mixed uses, and they support apartment buildings like this with a height range of 2 stories to 5 stories. The secondary plan aims to create a mixed-use corridor on Nickel Street with buildings close to the street and with active street frontages. So there are some pictures on the right-hand slide showing surrounding uses, the commercial uses, the industrial use towards the end of the street, and some vacant lands in the bottom right. On the subject lands today are partially grassed area and partially an asphalt parking lot. This slide shows the site plan prepared by ACK Architects. The building positioning is near the street in the southwest corner of the site. The dark, bold black line constitutes the first floor of the building. And you see the dashed and kind of transparent gray color shows the upper floors of the building. So the second, third, and fourth stories go partially above the parking area in the on the site here. So parking is set to the rear and to the side. It's blocked from view strategically from Nickel Street to achieve that design intent from the official plan. And as Eric's mentioned, the site is zoned R4 today, which does permit the use. It permits apartment buildings and permits up to 20 meters, so about 6 stories in terms of the building that's allowed here. So in that regard, the height and the use are do conform to the zoning bylaw and of course to the official plan. So we've oriented the building in a manner that is closer to the street to activate the street, to be in line with the rest of the buildings that do exist on Nickel Street in terms of creating this strong street presence and a building that interacts with the street instead of having the building pushed more to the rear with parking in the front. The slide here does indicate some specifics on the variances requested. They're in the report in front of you, and it's on the agenda, and Eric's mentioned them, but I will just touch on a few things. Minimum front yard, that's A at the bottom of the slide, from 9 meters to 0.3 meters, and again, that was done to match the setbacks that do exist on the street already. Minimum interior side yard from 3 meters to 2.4 meters, so that west side to the building wall. The permitted encroachments into the required yards, there are balconies on the west side of the building that encroach into that yard. And there are also some sort of architectural wing walls on the sides of the building that are noted as CI there that essentially help to frame the street and block the parking area from the street architecturally. Other relief from the general provisions, minimum lot area per unit. The official plan doesn't have a density maximum in this area, and so the minimum lot area per unit is essentially a density regulation in the zoning bylaw, and we feel this is appropriate in this area, in line with the official plan's vision for development on the site. The landscaped percentage from 25 to 21%. Things such as stormwater management and other site design will be dealt with at the site plan stage. We're working on some of those details now and intend to submit site plan application within the coming weeks. And I'll also note with respect to landscape open space that each unit does have their own private balcony. What else do we have? Lot coverage is being increased, and that's partially due to the way that we've cantilevered the building over top of the parking areas and where those posts line up in the parking lot. And again, with respect to coverage, we're confident that there's a stormwater management solution. There won't be any impacts as a result of increased coverage on the site. For parking, we have a reduction to 1.5 per unit. So this is a 17-unit apartment building, 4 stories. So we're at 18 parking spaces, so just over 1 per unit. So there'd be at least 1 per unit with 1 additional space on the property. And I'll note there is on-street parking in front of the property on Nickel Street. The minimum landscape buffer, we purposefully have maintained the minimum landscape buffer from the parking area on the north edge, adjacent to the existing lower density residential uses. On the east side, where we have 1.1 meters, there's an existing commercial use there. The existing parking lot is basically right in that same spot up against the property line, but we are allowing a buffer there for fencing and planting. And along the west side to the 1.66 is for just that back out area. just for vehicles to maneuver as they back out of spaces 16 and 15. And the rest of the parking lot along that west edge complies with the bylaw. Lastly, I'll just mention the location of bike parking. We've put it at the, not directly adjacent to the front entrance at the front of the building, but instead at the back under cover, probably with better surveillance, away from the elements and still adjacent to entrances into the back of the building. So just to show you some of the preliminary building elevations that we're working through here with ACK Architects. The top left shows the view from Nichols Street, and you can see where it says 80, that's sort of that wing wall that encroaches into the side yard, and the blank white space there in the top left is the driveway going to the parking at the rear. The other views here are from the front, front left, front right, from the side, and some rear elevations and side elevations of the building. So with that, I'll just summarize. In our opinion, the variances are minor, are appropriate, meet the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. We've reviewed the staff report that's on your agenda and are supportive of it, and have no other comments on the report. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions regarding this application? Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Aaron, just a couple quick things. With regard to the reduced landscape buffer, I know what's in place now as neighboring on both sides of the property and on the north side. But that's not to say that won't change over time. So I'm wondering, what will you put in place with a reduced buffer so that the headlights from cars don't shine out onto the neighbors? To have that much of a reduction, to me is a lot, because you reduce the ability of the foliage to contain the light. So will you fence in, I'm almost going to say, the north, the west, and the east sides of the property? Was that the intent?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that certainly is the intent, to have likely board-on-board fence to minimize headlight glare. And there is still sufficient room around the perimeter for landscaping. The north side, we have substantial amount, as on the west side. The west side, the reduction is only to that portion where just vehicles backing out. The east side, as I mentioned, is adjacent to the commercial area. This type of condition closer to a 1 meter landscape buffer in a commercial area like that is not uncommon. And so there would still be plantings as well in that 1 meter buffer, as well as a fence along the east property line and the north and the west.
Okay, thank you. Just two other quick questions. And I can't remember what you called it, but that had the address on it, the 80 on it. Is that structural, that wall? Does it carry the load from, I'll say, the part that goes over top of the entryway?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not a structural engineer, but yes, that's my understanding. You can see here in the renderings to the member where you see at the bottom left say 80 there, and you see a beam coming across to 80. That is bearing the weight of the building above, and you can see two posts behind it. The building's essentially cantilevered over top of the parking area, and those posts and those wing walls are holding the building.
Okay. And one last question. When I take a look at the minimum requirement of square meters per unit, and what you're asking for the reduction of, and I guess Mr. Chair, through you to our planner as well, I would assume that the original number at 65 square meters, I believe it was, 125 square meters is what's required. Is that number in place to provide green space on the lot for residents in the building? Is that why from 125 down to 65, to me, is obviously a 50% reduction?
Through the chair, I'm not sure the original intent of that, but I do know that in this zone, they don't have a density target for buildings. In that place, they're using a size of lot per unit, which, you know, I don't know where that number originated from, and I don't know if I think that going forward, you know, at the city, we're going to continue to look at that, or if we're going to be contemplating adjustments to that as part of our Housing Accelerator Fund. But at the current time, that requirement does exist in the zone, and so you're foreseeing the request for the relief. But I'm not fully aware of its origins.
Okay.
Other than I do know we see it in zones where we don't have the density.
And just, I know you probably have a comment. I'll just say this. When looking at the property and taking a look at the 125 is required as opposed to 61 that you're asking for, I'm thinking the lot would have to be enormous to qualify for the 125. The 61 seems reasonable as that lot sits. And that was the first thing that came to my mind. Where did the 125 come from when the lot itself looked fully capable of accommodating this building? And it struck me that it seemed like, I'll say overkill, and that what you're asking for seems to be more of the norm of what you see in buildings of this size. So I just wanted to ask that question because something didn't add up to me when I looked at the building lot. That's all I have.
Thank you. Do you wish to comment on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I can make a comment on that. This, the requirement, of course, I didn't write the Port Colborne zoning bylaw, but we do a lot of work on zoning bylaws. And it's this square meters per unit isn't a calculation for, to control amenity space necessarily. Lot coverage and landscape percentage do control that to a degree. Amenity area per unit in bylaws you'll see sometimes to control that kind of thing. It's more so about density and unit count to me. And what I look to in this is your official plan, right? That is providing high level guidance on density. And in this east waterfront area, the vision, there is no density limit. There is no maximum density. So what we've done is looked at the site and tried to design something that's sensitive, that fits, that's very functional, and the unit count came out to 17. And if we did comply with the 125, which restricts density, the official plan doesn't, you'd be less than half of 17. But the building could be the exact same size. We could be looking at variances for the building size still, with bigger units or maybe not as tall of a building. So,
Thank you. Gary, did you have any questions?
Yes, I did, Mr. Chair. Through you to the agent. Just a question that's not very clear from the renderings. The street, I understand where the parking lot is. I understand that's going to be a rear entrance. The units that are on the ground floor at street level, parallel to the street, do they have their apartment entrances off the street? So in other words, does each individual ground unit have a door where they can just enter from the street?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
On the street side, yeah.
Yep, for sure. Through you, Mr. Chair. There are actually no ground floor apartment units. The apartment units are on the second, third, and fourth stories. So the ground floor would be apartment amenities, lobby, So the triangle that you see just above the A box, that is an entrance, most likely into a community room, a community amenity room. We wanted to put that room with doors into it at the front so that people are coming in and out of there. Perhaps there's a gathering, it opens to the streets. So to answer the question directly, there's no units on the first floor, and so there aren't any direct apartment doors going out to the street or any other part of the first floor.
That's good to know. It was hard to tell from the secondary drawing showing the adjacent area, but I did notice it at the original rendering when I looked at the slideshow. I couldn't flip back into it right now. I was worried I was going to lose you, because one of the things I'd be concerned about if there's another entry, like you use the word rear entry, and I like that, but my experience in town is where apartment buildings, and for us locals here, I look at the one at Erie Street and Kalali West. It was an old church converted to apartment buildings, and the other one is in Humberston Shoe Park at George and Erie. When the parking's been in the rear, but there's access off the street, what seems to end up happening is the parking lot's empty for the most part, and people being people just park in front of their door on the street or park in front of the easiest access door to the building and leave their car there night and day 24/7 because that's the easiest way to get to their car. So I applaud you for not doing the ground floor, but do you think the rear entrance is going to be conducive to where people will park vis-a-vis where it's easier to get into the building?
Through you, Mr. Chair. If you look at the front right perspective, which is on the bottom left part of the screen,
right?
The next to the driveway coming under the building, there are doors. So those doors are east facing. Those doors would go into the lobby, and they're next to the parking area. And then there's also doors at the back of the building to go into the lobby or a stairwell adjacent to the parking area. The doors at the very front of the building, like I said, are for, we envision like a community room or a gathering room or something like that. So those wouldn't necessarily be the doors that people are going in and out of from their vehicles. But at the same time, we don't want to have no access at the street to turn our backs to the street where we end up with like a fire door or something facing Nickel Street. We really want to have the building engage the street here. So we went with these glass doors, like French style double opening doors.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm probably going further than your question. But yes, we think the doors on the side and the back are most conveniently located next to the parking area.
Thank you. That was very helpful. You didn't go too far on that. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Eric, any questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I guess my only concern was really the balconies and their proximity to the westerly lot line. But the balcony in that case is pretty well in the front yard, so I really don't think there's much of a privacy concern, whereas for the lot on, I believe it's 72 Nickel, whenever that ends up being developed. So at this time, I think this development is one that is appropriate for the area, and I hope to see it built.
Very good. And Eric, I don't think Acting Secretary Eric. Do we still have a person online? And do they wish to speak to this application?
Through the chair, I'm going to stop the share on the presentation.
Okay.
And we will go to our online participants. And I see Gloria is still online. Gloria, was this an application that you wish to speak to?
Their mic's on mute. I don't know if you can unmute their mic or not, but I'm going to say no.
Through the chair, I have given her opportunity to unmute her mic and speak, and I'm not seeing she coming online, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, oh, now they're gone. So with that being said, there's no other people here this evening that wish to speak to it unless they're running up the stairs right now, and I don't hear nothing. So with that, if there's no other questions or comments, make it running sound. So with that, I'll go to Eric if you're willing to move it.
Yep. Application A09-25-PC, lots 22, 23, and part lot 24 on Plan 857 in the city of Port Colborne. Application 09-25-PC be granted as for the following reasons. 1, the applications are minor in nature. 2, they are appropriate for the development of the site. 3, they are desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. 4, they are desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan.
Thank you. Seconder to that? Just waiting for Gary. There we go, Gary. Yes, I didn't want you to forget about you online there, Gary. So. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Just a real quick comment.
Dave.
Fabulous design. I don't think there's anything like this in town. So if you and the group are successful, and I hope you are, please take a look at other lots in town and build things like this. This, when I first saw this, I was like, you're going to build this in Port Colborne? It's so different and unique for us because there's nothing like it. It would be nice to see something, if not exactly the same, sharing kind of the same designs in other places because it will really, really enhance the city. So let your group know that thanks for designing a great building, and we hope to see it get built as quickly as possible.
Just going off that, just continue doing it on the east side first. Thanks.
So with that, all those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you. Just going to other business. Does anyone have any other business? Not seeing any. When we go to the minutes, I'm going to go to the May 14th minutes first, which is last month. If I can get a mover and a seconder for those. Thank you. Eric and Dave. Any questions or comments on those? All in favor? That'll be carried. Now, with regards to these other ones, maybe, Eric, you can explain what the issue was. I looked at what was attached and posted online, and they looked exactly like what was already posted for those particular days. So they seem to still have the, I guess, the issue that was raised. I think what needed to be added was we actually accepted the minutes of the previous months in a couple of those meetings. And I believe this amendment is to just capture the fact that we did accept those minutes based on the videos.
Through the chair, that's correct. Yeah, we're just looking for, it can even be one motion, or we can do them as the three that are broken down just to pass them. But they previously, as you're explaining,
Okay.
there was discussion at the committee meeting, but it looks like the motion was not called at those meetings.
Okay. So, well, actually, I watched it. We did actually move them and pass them. We just didn't capture them in the minutes. If you watch the video at the very end, they are captured. And I do know that the April 24th, as well as we had one earlier in that month, I think it was April 8th, 12th, I can't remember like that, about 2 weeks prior. They were done at the same time on block. So if April 24th has not been captured on the May minutes, then the early one in the month, I can't remember the exact date was, 8th or 12th or whatever it was also missed then. So both of those should be added to the minutes of the 8th. And the minutes of the 8th would have been captured on the minutes of the 12th. And those are the only 2 minutes that should be amended. So June 12th and May 8th, and that would capture the minutes or the meetings missed, if that makes sense. So if I can get a mover and a second to amend those minutes to include those. Gary, Eric, questions or comments? Hopefully I was somewhat clear in all that explanation. All right. So with that, all those in favor, that'll be carried. And I will consider our meeting adjourned.